taking a look at things very broad strokes to start off with, let's take cognizance of the perceptions of Africa that are out there right now, having weathered the global economic downturn relatively well, and with growth forecasts suggesting a growth of roughly 5% this year. To what extent have we seen, broadly speaking, a shift in perception?
Hi, good afternoon, Alicia. Well, you indicated the issue of perceptions. I must say that South Africa, in fact, has done pretty well in terms of weathering the economic crisis. But I think more importantly, over the past year or two, South Africa is now considered as the last growth frontier, and therefore perceptions have really become very positive. And there's quite a keen interest, obviously, in looking at Africa from an investment point of view. And I think from a South African point of view, we've also been able to add quite a lot to that in terms of our hosting of the World Cup. But more importantly, the fact that we've indicated that we have very robust systems in place, that our fundamentals are very robust. Our financial institutions have also been able to withstand the financial crisis. But more importantly, also our contribution to the rest of the continent. I believe these are factors that have really helped to reshape perceptions about Africa.
So let's get a bit specific here. I mean, from a marketing perspective, how are you leveraging off that shift? How do you market South Africa and Africa to the world?
Well, first, Alicia, let me just highlight that from our perspective as Brand South Africa, our objective is obviously to build the reputation of Brand South Africa. And to do that, we have to contribute to the building of Brand Africa. Our vision is obviously to ensure that from a competitiveness point of view, we are amongst the top 30, but also as a nation brand, we would like, our vision is to be amongst the top 20. And so the contribution that we make in that respect is really by promoting and positioning South Africa as a viable destination for investment, for business, for tourism, but also trade. If you look at our recent accession to the BRICS, that's another milestone that is really going to up the game in terms of our ability to market and profile South Africa as an investable destination.
When it comes to ways, of exploring to build on the positive image that's out there, it seems that even the recent uprisings in North Africa, highlighting political risk that's still out there, seems to have come with a bit of a positive spin too, whereas many view it as a welcomed change. Are we getting cleverer at the way we market ourselves?
Well, I think that's a two-edged sword if you look at it, Alicia, because part of the reality is that as South Africa, our destiny and our trajectory for economic growth is inextricably linked to that of the continent. So whatever happens on the continent, in a way, becomes a reflection on us. But what is happening is that increasingly, as countries on the continent begin to improve their situation and begin to promote themselves as distinct entities and not just as part of an amorphous entity called Africa, the differentiation becomes very apparent, and therefore what happens in North Africa does not necessarily translate into contagion in terms of the south of the continent. So I think what is happening is that there is much more differentiation in terms of the marketing profiling of countries, and South Africa has done that pretty well so far.
Having said that, the more skeptical voices out there argue that South Africa shouldn't be trying to airbrush its problems away. What's your response to commentary like that that's out there?
Well, it's a reality that we have challenges like any other country that has recently attained its democracy. We are a nascent democracy, so we would have all the challenges, socio-economic challenges that come with any new and developing economy. So I don't think it's so much a matter of really airbrushing them, but it's a matter of really being cognizant of those challenges and addressing them. And I think part of the marketing effort, part of the profiling effort is by really being cognizant of those impediments and saying, how do we come up with concrete solutions? And in that respect, if you look at what South Africa has done, we now have a new growth path that seeks to drive economic growth in the country, and it's taking the route of industrialization. We have an updated industrial policy action plan that also seeks to ensure that industrialization becomes our path to economic development growth, and therefore addressing those specific challenges we've highlighted of joblessness, issues around health, around education.
So just to wrap things up, how would you rate South Africa's brand strength at this stage of the game, and where do we need to get?
Well, if you look at its brand strength, out of 50 countries so far, South Africa is ranked around, if you look at the current, we're around 37 or so. And so out of 50 countries, and these are some of those countries are really developed countries, I believe that we're doing fairly well. Our vision, as I said, is to become ranked amongst the top 20. And so I believe that that's a fairly good performance for an emerging market. And more recently now being accepted and recognized by the BRIC countries as a peer and as a country that is significant in its own right, that in itself speaks volumes for what South Africa has attained. In terms of the challenges, as I said, we have put in place measures to address those in terms of our growth path. These challenges, like issues such as education and increasing education, you've seen some of the strides that we have made there. You've seen the strides that we are making in terms of addressing our health challenges. As for jobs, we are obviously focused through the new growth path and the industrial policy action plan to ensure that we address those issues in a more sustainable manner.